There is a kind of silence, and that is not empty. It is a silence that screams, that tightens the chest of those who remain, that occupies the corners of memory, like an echo that refuses to die. And that silence is what you left behind when you decided to disappear from someone's life. Maybe you think your absence went unnoticed, that no one noticed, that the world moved on, as if you had never been there. But the truth is different. There is an almost inevitable sequence of thoughts and feeling and emotional turmoil that begin to sprout in the mind of those who lost you. And the most curious thing is that this happens precisely because you stopped trying. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped insisting. You stopped being a forced presence and then became a voluntary absence. Have you ever noticed how, sometimes, it's only when you disappear that people begin to see the space you occupied while you were there, available, predictable, easy to access, easy to forget. No one noticed. Your presence became a given, a constant that didn't deserve attention. But the moment you disappear, a chain reaction begins. First comes the strangeness, then curiosity, soon after, discomfort, restlessness, and finally, corrosive doubt. Why did he disappear? Is he okay? Was it me? Who caused this? And so, your absence begins to speak louder than any words you could have said. It's funny, isn't it? When you were trying, no one listened to you. Now that you've fallen silent, no one can stop listening to you. And there is something deeply stoic about this process, because disappearing isn't running away. It's not punishment. It's not a game. It's an act of emotional self-control. It's the conscious breaking of a cycle of wasted energy. Epictetus said that often the best way to protect yourself is to simply make yourself unavailable. And that's exactly what you did. Your absence now is your first line of defense. And the most ironic thing is that while you deal with your own silence, those who stayed behind are fighting an invisible battle. They won't admit it. They'll try to act like nothing happened. They'll laugh loudly on social media. They'll post forced photos of happiness. They'll create narratives for themselves that you never made that much of a difference. But at night, when the noise stops, when the distractions end, when the pillow becomes the only confidant, the question returns even stronger. Why did he disappear right now? And maybe they'll never have an answer, because your silence didn't come to explain anything. It came to make it clear that the previous cycle is over, and that from here on out, everything has changed. Now, take a deep breath, because next, we're going to dive into the 7 inevitable feelings that begin to corrode those who realize, too late, the value of your presence. 1. Is he okay? The first impact of your absence is concern disguised as disinterest. At first, the person tries to ignore it. They try to go about their routine as if nothing were out of place. But as the days go by, your absence begins to create holes in their perception. Holes that were once filled by your messages, your invitations, your attempts to get in touch. Now, the space is empty, and the silence is too uncomfortable to ignore. Their mind starts to create hypotheses. Did something happen? Are they sick? Did they have an accident? Did they just give up on everything? The concern, in fact, is a reflection of a lack of control. While you were present, she knew where you were, what you were doing, who you were with. Now, she no longer knows, and the lack of information hurts. This reveals an important detail. Human beings fear emptiness. They fear the unknown. They fear losing control over their own connections. Seneca said that fear is always the anticipation of a loss that has not yet happened, but which is already beginning to corrode from within. And right now, that is exactly what is happening to her. 2. Is he with someone else? After the concern comes the second layer of discomfort. Jealousy disguised as curiosity. If your absence is prolonged, her mind begins to create its own narratives. Silence becomes fertile ground for assumptions, and the most obvious hypothesis begins to form. Has he met someone else? The idea that you may be investing time, attention, and energy in someone else is almost unbearable. Because while you were available, she felt secure. She had a captive space in your life. But now, everything is uncertain. She starts analyzing your social media more closely than ever. Every photo, every like, every comment. She looks for signs. She looks for clues. She looks for any crumbs that might indicate that your silence is filled by another presence. And if she finds nothing, the emptiness becomes even more maddening, because the unknown allows her mind to paint the worst scenarios. Maybe you're with someone, maybe you're not. But the doubt has already done the damage. Epictetus taught that human suffering arises from the attempt to control the uncontrollable. And now, she is caught in that cycle. 3. Why did he disappear without saying anything? Here, the rationalization begins. She tries to find a logical explanation, an excuse that relieves her of emotional responsibility. He must be busy. Something must have happened at work. Maybe he's going through personal problems. But deep down, a more uncomfortable question begins to emerge. Was it me? Who caused this? She tries to search her recent memories, unresolved conversations, moments of tension, little frictions that, at the time, she ignored. Now, every detail comes back to her, like a movie of misinterpreted scenes. Her mind revisits every message, every silence during their last interactions. She begins to piece together an emotional puzzle, trying to find the breaking point. This process is painful, because the more she tries to find an explanation, the more she realizes that maybe you just got tired, and that is a deep wound to her ego. 4. Did I do something? Now guilt begins to creep in. Even if she doesn't want to admit it, doubt is inevitable. The human brain, when exposed to prolonged silence from someone who was once a constant presence, begins to look for blame. She remembers things she said, things she did, times she ignored you, times she made you wait. Short answers, forced absences. Each episode that once seemed irrelevant now takes on a different weight. Did I overreact? Was I too cold? Did I cross the line in that last conversation? And the more she tries to rationalize, the more the guilt grows, like a slow poison. Marcus Aurelius wrote that, sooner or later, all unjust behavior returns to the person who practiced it in the form of inner turmoil. And now she feels it, the discomfort, the regret, the self-blame. Even if she never admits it out loud, inside her, the truth is clear. You disappeared. And she knows she is to blame. 5. He wasn't like this before. Here, the shock begins. She realizes, clearly, that the man she knew is no longer the same. You were always the one who was available, the one who responded quickly, the one who insisted, the one who tried to keep the connection alive even when she didn't seem to care. Now, you've become absent. You've become silent. You've become a mystery. And that contrast is brutal. She starts comparing your before with your now, and the more she notices the difference, the more the doubt grows. What happened to him? Why such a sudden change? Could he finally have gotten over it? And that last hypothesis is the one that hurts the most, because no matter how hard she tries to convince herself that everything is fine, the idea that you have evolved, that you have grown stronger, that you have broken the cycle of emotional dependence, is the hardest blow to bear. Now, she looks at her own reflection and begins to understand that maybe she has underestimated you all along. And here, the emotional tension reaches another level, because from that point on, her fear is not just your disappearance, it's your transformation. And in the next dive, we'll go even deeper into the final psychological reactions that your absence will inevitably provoke. 6. Now it seems like you're better off without me. And here the deepest wound begins. She observes, even from a distance, that your life hasn't stopped, that the world has continued to turn for you, that your silence is not one of sadness, but of rebuilding. Maybe you've started posting new photos. Maybe your gaze in the photos is different, more determined, more focused. Maybe people are interacting with you in a way they didn't before. Maybe even your style has changed. The fact is, for her, it's impossible to ignore. That man who once seemed too available, too predictable, now seems more whole, more centered, more unattainable. And that messes with her ego in a way that no argument could ever do. She starts comparing your old self with your current self. And what she sees is a man who has finally understood his own worth. This is a powerful trigger, because deep down, she hoped you would disappear, but remain broken. She hoped you would be at home, staring at your phone, waiting for a message that would never come. She hoped you would be suffering and to maintain the balance of power. But now, the reality is different. You are better, you are stronger, and worst of all, you are unattainable. Seneca said that the greatest form of revenge is to be happy in a way that others never expected, and that is exactly what you are doing to her now. 7. Maybe I should send a message. After everything, after the worry, the doubt, the jealousy, the guilt, and the realization that you've changed, the final stage arrives, the urge to break the silence. She starts mentally rehearsing what she would say. Hi, how are you? I've been thinking about you these past few days. You disappeared, didn't you? Or even the classic, you just disappeared out of nowhere. But along with this desire comes pride, doubt, the fear of seeming needy, the fear of admitting that she missed you. She opens the conversation on her phone, writes, deletes, and writes again, stares at the screen without the courage to press the send button. And while she fights this internal battle, you remain in your place of absolute silence, and the power remains with you. Because now, she knows you're not waiting. She knows the cycle has changed. She knows that whatever step she takes will be her own choice, and not because you forced her with desperate messages. Epictetus talked about the power of letting others fight with their own thoughts while you simply follow your path. And that's exactly what's happening. While she decides whether or not to send a message, you keep evolving, you keep growing, you keep becoming the version of yourself that for so long it was suffocated inside you. And maybe she'll never have the courage to press send. Maybe she'll give in to pride. Maybe she'll wait too long. And maybe when she finally tries, it'll be too late, because the man you're becoming now isn't the same man who once waited for messages that never came. Now, her absence has a name. It has weight. It has presence. And silence remains your most lethal weapon. And what comes next is the end of it all. The moment when you decide, once and for all, what to do with all the power that your absence has built. Maybe now, she's lying down, with her phone in her hand, going through all the old messages, reading every conversation, every sentence, every response of yours that she once ignored. Maybe she's opening your photos on Instagram, analyzing details that previously went unnoticed, the angle of your gaze, the change in your expression, the type of comments other people are leaving. And the question that haunts her, it is always the same. Why does he seem so happy without me? She doesn't know, but the answer lies in the internal process you started the moment you chose to disappear. Your absence was not an escape. It was a ritual of mourning for all the times you humiliated yourself, for every moment you sent that last message that went unanswered, for every night you asked yourself is what you did wrong. Now, she's the one asking herself that. The cycle has reversed, and with each passing day, the psychological impact grows heavier. She begins to realize that you are no longer the man she manipulated with crumbs of attention. You've become an emotional fortress, a stronghold, and the more she realizes this, the more her desperation grows, because her ego was never prepared to deal with your absence. She may try to rationalize it. He's just doing this to provoke me. He'll be back soon. This is just a phase. But deep down, she knows. This time, it's different. Because you're not gone, waiting for a cue to come back. You're rebuilt. Each of the 7 thoughts she had was a stage in her own emotional downfall. First the worry, then the doubt, the jealousy, the guilt, the shock of your change, the realization of your happiness, and now, the almost uncontrollable urge to look for you. But there's one last layer that she hasn't realized yet. While she struggles with pride, with fear, and with guilt, time is working in favor of your liberation. The more days go by, the more you distance yourself emotionally. Because with time, absence becomes a habit, silence becomes comfort, and peace, which once seemed impossible, is now your new natural state. Seneca said that, when suffering becomes routine, the only way out is to transform pain into freedom. And that's what's happening to you right now. Every day, you feel less and less desire to know what she's thinking, less curiosity about her social media, less anxiety about a possible message. You started this process as an attempt at emotional protection, but now it has become spiritual evolution. You are no longer running away from anyone, you are moving towards yourself. And the cruelest thing is that she feels it. She feels that you are not waiting, that you are not in the game, that you are not on standby. And that is what hurts the most, because the truth she never wanted to face has now become inevitable. The man she was sure would always be there no longer exists. In his place, there is another, a man who has learned that absence can be the greatest declaration of self-love, that silence can be more devastating than any scream, that disappearing is a form of rebirth. And while she hesitates, calculates, thinks and rethinks, you simply move on, because the cycle has already been broken. And in the next dive, what comes is the definitive closure of this process, the moment when you choose to go back, choose to ignore, choose to move on, or choose simply not to look back. Now, it's just you. No excuses, no unanswered questions, no poorly explained endings, just you, and the echo of everything you left behind. For so long, you wasted energy trying to be understood, trying to be accepted, trying to be enough for people who, deep down, were never ready to recognize your value. You gave yourself beyond your limits. You waited for messages that never came. You created entire conversations in your head just to justify the silence of others. You tried to guess what you did wrong, when in fact, the only mistake was staying so long where you were never a priority. But now, the tables have turned. And no, this isn't about revenge. This is about rebirth, about the moment when you decide that you will never again trade your peace for a crumb of attention. Look back and remember every night you lost sleep, waiting for a response. Remember every time you hesitated to send a message, afraid of seeming needy, and yet you sent it anyway. Remember the anguish of opening your phone and finding only a seen notification, silence, contempt. Now, look at what you've become. A man who has learned to use his own silence as armor, who understands that disappearing isn't vanishing, it's protecting yourself, who recognizes that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away for good. And while she struggles with her own questions, you may choose your next step. Maybe she'll never look for you. Maybe she'll send that message full of apologies, attempts to reconnect, phrases that start with, "I missed you," or "I've been thinking about you these days." But whatever her reaction, you already know what to do. Take a deep breath. Feel the control return to your chest. And remember that your response doesn't have to be a response, because now, silence is also a choice, a conscious choice, a stoic choice. a choice made by someone who understands that respect begins with you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If the situation makes you lose your balance, perhaps the problem was never the situation, but your attachment to it. And now you've finally let go. Let go of the need to be seen, of the urgency to be answered, of the weight of wanting to be important to those who never truly valued you. Your absence has become the loudest message you've ever sent, and even if she never tells you, her mind will echo your absence for much longer than you can imagine. Now, the cycle is complete. The space that was once hers is now yours. Your space of peace, of silence, of reconstruction. And if she wants to come back in, and she'll have to knock, she'll have to wait, she'll have to understand that the man she once knew died in the process. What remains now is you, whole, strong, present. For yourself, enjoy if you chose to break the cycle. Comment which of these steps impacted you the most, and share with those who need this wake-up call.